Hey everyone, either welcome back or welcome to my channel. And in today's video, I want to share how this pandemic has affected my life over these past several months. I think this is a really interesting video to do now because I have experience with this particular thing over the past several months. So before I get into any more details, time for the intro. I have to be really careful when I talk about COVID-19 and the pandemic. Now, when I tag COVID-19, there should be information down below this video, depending on where you are, that you can click on to get the expert consensus on all of the true facts about the disease from a medical perspective and what is known about COVID-19 right now. What I'm going to be sharing today is how the pandemic has affected my life with IIH, more so in how it's affected everyday life for me with IIH. Whether or not you have a chronic illness or not, this pandemic has affected our lives. We have to be able to talk about this. One of the biggest ways that I've noticed that COVID-19 has impacted my life is that there's been an increased feeling of isolation. Now, we go through this feeling of isolation already, having a chronic rare disease. This is a very real part of living with a chronic illness, just in general. So isolation is just a reality, I think, of living with a chronic illness. Now, the ways that these feelings of isolation has increased is because of the things that have been affected. I've talked a little bit about this in my videos, particularly my updates, though. The reason why the increase in feelings of isolation for me has occurred is because the way that I was getting out in the winter, especially last year, isn't happening anymore. So a lot of our appointments now are via phone. Some of you may do video conferencing even with your doctors. They do them by phone where I live. So you're not getting out to go to those doctor's appointments. Another way it's increased is because places are either A, not allowing indoor dining, or B, they're allowing it, but people aren't going out as much because of the fact that it's not very convenient anymore. And so you're eating more at home. Well, I'm not getting out now because of that. And also, the amount of people in my area is limited to so many people at a table. So we used to go out as a group of friends. We have family friends that I spend actually a lot of time with. There's more than 4 of us. So we're not able to go out and enjoy a meal together because there's too many of us. We can't have a table of 11 because of the pandemic. So that weekly thing is not happening. Also, a lot of us feel a little bit more comfortable at home and not out in restaurants and all of that. So there's we feel better at home. We'd rather stay at home because we feel a little bit more comfortable. I know for me that because they've encouraged us to have bubbles with certain groups of people, I haven't seen some friends and family in several months because they're not in our bubble, they live far away. So all of that contributes to more isolation. Now, the difference is we could be using technology to catch up with these people, but the reality is the technology is just not the same. I found this out actually when I was actually in school and was keeping in contact with my parents couple times a week via FaceTime. It was good because you could see their face, but it was never the same as when they were actually there in person. So I was kind of aware of this issue with FaceTime of how you're talking to a person, but it doesn't really feel like they're there. As I just mentioned, there's been a decreased availability towards medical appointments. Now, I talked about it in the whole issue of, well, we're not getting out for medical appointments, but actually, I had one of my appointments delayed for several months because, on top of my neurologist, who is able to do appointments via telemedicine, my ophthalmologist is unable to do my appointments via telemedicine. I have to be there because of the testing that they do. They can't do this testing via teleconferencing. It's impossible. So I had actually one appointment delayed for several months because they weren't taking in patients. Now, this could have been disastrous. I'm going to get to this point in a second. But it was more so frustrating in the end than it was anything else because you weren't getting what regular checkups you needed to. I'm happy I was where I was, though, this year in my journey with IIH, because if I had been at the beginning of this journey, it would have been pretty bad. The one positive that I did find was that I didn't have this feeling that I was letting people down because you weren't able to go out anywhere. So you know this feeling I get of when I have to say, oh, I'm sorry, I can't do this today, or I can't go to that thing, or no, I can't come to your event because I'm not feeling good enough. It was quite nice not having that happen. I have to admit, though, that a lot of my life didn't change that much between restrictions being added and taken away because we kind of live a quarantine lifestyle already as it is with IIH. The difference is that because there's one person dedicated to going and get groceries, I wasn't able to help going to get groceries. Because my medical appointments are now on phone and I can stay at home, I wasn't having to go out for those. So it's just, I'm not getting out of the house at all anymore. So it turned from, well, at least I'm still getting out occasionally, to I'm never getting out of the house at all. And this has been a really big issue actually during the winter time because it's too cold to get out onto the trails. So guaranteed, come the spring, I'm probably going to be out of the house as much as possible. This pandemic likely has delayed me getting taken off of medication. My ophthalmologist just told me at my last appointment that I likely would have been off medication several months earlier, but because the pandemic delayed my appointment for so long that we had to wait for so long to start decreasing the medication. I had my last appointment in October. I had my next appointment in January, but before then, I hadn't seen my ophthalmologist since March, and I was supposed to have my appointment in June. Now, this could have been catastrophic because it was when they first started to decrease my acetazolamide was in March. 3 months later, I was supposed to have another checkup with my ophthalmologist to see if we can continue decreasing the medication or if my optic swelling was starting to come back because I was actually I had my medication decreased in half. So this could have been absolutely devastating if the medication was the only thing that was controlling my headaches, because I had no idea how my eyes were doing. Overall, I wasn't able to tell whether it was the weight loss having helped my optic nerve swelling or whether it was the medication keeping it under control. Now I know the answer to that question, but at that point, I didn't know. Looking back, had that had been the case where my optic nerve swelling was only being controlled by medication and not by weight loss, I could have potentially had irreversible vision loss because of the delays, because of the pandemic. I'm so thankful. If I come out of this thing with any type of gratitude over this past year, it's going to be that in particular, that my optic nerve swelling is likely because of the weight and wasn't because it was under control via the medication. The medication was probably helping for a very, very long time, and now I'm good enough because I've lost enough weight. But looking back, that could have been such a disaster. If you guys have any questions or comments, be sure to leave one down below. If you've made it this far in the video, don't forget to subscribe. Click that notification bell and turn your notifications to all so you never miss another video. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and share. If you're watching on Facebook or Instagram, be sure to like and follow. And as for now, that's it for today. Bye everyone.